Hi everyone. So I have found a spot with not a lot of noise, and that's the first time for this whole week. I am at the No Mind Festival in Sweden, and people just left yesterday. It's been a beautiful festival. I've been sharing about the gene keys, about human design. There's been a lot of workshops, really a beautiful week, very much from the heart. And right now we are in Gene Key 62. And I wanted to actually show you a transit chart and kind of starting to use the transits to understand what's going on, because we can see that whatever is going on in the planetary bodies is kind of, we're all connected, right? So it's something that we can also use to interpret what's going on for us. And that's what we do in astrology. And it's also something that's really useful to do through the gene keys and human design. So let me share the transits right now. So what I do is that I just go to Jovian Archive and I tap just now, and then the chart comes up. So then we start looking at just what's activated in the chart. So now we can see that the sun is in 62.2, the programming partner is the 61, which is the earth, and we are in the line 2. So first of all, the line 2 has this tone of the dancer, of naturalness, of ease, of flow. The embodied principle is the spine, so it's like the fluidity of the spine that can actually move in all right directions and bend. So it's really a day for that kind of thing. And it's also kind of passionate and fearless energy. The second line just is, and many times doesn't really think. So there can be projections, and there can be even denial and conflicts in the shadow frequency in the second line. But it's a freshness of it too, to kind of just also we can think about the sacral center, more like the water element. And what is else than that, what's kind of popping out, we can see there are 3 centers that are completely open, and I used to see that as a reflector, or somebody with completely open centers that can reflect that back to people. So there is a wisdom about these centers. So we know that Splenic center is about our fears, and it's also about knowing what's good to hold on to and what we should let go of. So those things can be highlighted now. What are good for us for in the emotional, in the physical, in the mental, in the spiritual, and not holding on to things that aren't good for us. And also looking at our fears. Are our fears making our life more narrow, or our fears kind of keeping us safe? Looking at fears, how they show up in our life right now. And then we have the ego center that has to do with worthiness, and really just understanding, do I feel worthy by being, or do I have to do a lot? Am I over promising? Am I trying to prove something in my doing? And then we have the G center that is about love, direction, and identity. So that is more about looking at if we are trying to find love and direction, and even who we are outside ourselves, by maybe being in a relationship, or a whole life could be really just that, looking for love somewhere, and we are not really fulfilling our purpose. I feel like there is a lot in the throat center. So we have the sun, which is 62 in the throat center, which is about impeccability and precision, and the shadow of intellect. So it's really kind of transcending intellect in order to find a higher intelligence. And we can also say that when we read in the Gene Key book, we can see that this is the more masculine mind, you could say, the more left brain mind, the intellect, whereas the 61 that we have in the earth is the more feminine. So they kind of are in the right places, kind of the evolution and the upward triangle, which is the masculine in the sun, and then the more feminine in the earth. And I think that Richard is taking the example of a religion. It's kind of becoming believing in something that doesn't have a scientific proof, and then this is kind of science, the 62, that has to do with a more like intellect and the research and the facts, that make us believe in something, and that both those sides can be very unbalanced. Believing in something that doesn't have any proof, and it becomes rigid in that way, and then the facts and the research that is more based on the left brain. We can also see right now the moon is in gate 11, so it's a lot of ideas, and the same thing with 61 is inspiration and ideas, but in the shadow frequency kind of asks why. And then we have the ring of no return, the 31 and the 62. That's a codon ring, and I remember I wrote something about that last year, so I'm probably gonna post that. I have both of these. One is my attraction, the 31, and the 62 is my north node design side. So it is in the shadow frequency, intellect and arrogance. So you might be able to feel those frequencies somehow in me, and I might provoke that. I also have the 39 of provoking, and like Richard says in the 39, he says it has this funny way of provoking, of accentuating all the other shadows and gifts and cities. And yeah, more and more I can see that I've kind of turned to arrogance, or to intellect, or to detail even, which is kind of the dilemma of the 62. In order to feel more safe, or in order to feel more smart, or in order to feel that things are right. I'm also a 6 line in my attraction, the 31. So that's also kind of this perspective, and a little bit of the judge, the things that we know, right? And then at the same time, we have this beautiful 33, which is now it's in detriment, but it's in Mars, and this is about storytelling, and not always, I would say it's about not having to use arrogance, but actually being able to just tell a story about something we experienced, or sharing something around the bonfire, and then everybody learns from it, but it doesn't have to like point any finger. We have the 22nd in Neptune. It's about grace and graciousness, dishonoring the shadow. Probably, Neptune, depending on like the aspects in astrology, I'm not sure what's aspecting, but this is a little far away. And what more do we have? Yeah, this was interesting. Last week we had 3 times the 54 about greed. It was here, and then we had it in the south node, and we had it in the earth. So that was something that you might have felt, like the kind of 3D power structures, and money and those kinds of things were very accentuated last week, in kind of the push for expansion, which still is in the north node, but there's kind of trial and error with this right now in the 3rd line. And let's see, so this is going to still roll in the 3rd line. This is still going to be for a while. We're going to have the nodes like that, like probably, yeah, almost even the rest of the year, I would say. I think it's 18 months that we're going to have those 2 root activation, with expansion and aspiration as the gift frequencies, but also immaturity and greed in the shadow frequencies. We have the 39. Where is it? It's in Venus. So we have this provocation, but it's a provocation that's there to liberate, and it's really dynamic. So that's also activated for a while. And then the Mercury is actually the 31. So the way that we relate, the way that we think, the way we analyze can be that kind of, in the shadow frequency, the arrogance. But the potential for this is really, it's really leadership and humility. So kind of when we look at the 62 and the 31 in the higher dimensions, we have humility, impeccability, or leadership and precision. So they're collective, like they are collective gates in the collective circuitry, where they are about expressing solutions for the collective. And the 31 is this kind of reluctant leader that is chosen by the people, very different from the more tribal 45, for example. Yeah, and it's also interesting to see right now we have the Earth in 61 too, and we also have Pluto. There is something right now where like the collective unconscious, or what we're working with in kind of the destiny right now, it's activated from where conjunct like where the Earth is right now. So that's something, and it has to do with inspiration, and it has to do also with looking at where do we ask all these questions that don't lead anywhere? Where is the psychosis? Where do we ask why for things that don't really have an answer, and how to get out of that, and how to come back into flow and inspiration, and even how to tap into the great mystery, which is the 61, like go beyond and you know, find, which is always on the inside. So it's finding our inner truth. Maybe we should take a quick look. Should we take a quick look at the living library? No, I could maybe just say, like, just remember it from here. So let's stop sharing. So yeah, I feel like we can also just say that the channel is from the throat to the G center. No, from the throat to the ajna. So we have the 62 in the throat, and it connects to the 17th in the ajna, and it's this channel that has to do with opinion in the 17th, and then precision in the 62. So that's the channel in human design. And then the codon ring, we already mentioned this. It's with the 31, and the programming partner is the 61. So these are kind of the things to remember. And I'm going to post the animals, the dream arc. Is there anything else? Well, I guess that still we're only in the second line, and we'll see how the week proceeds, and you know, maybe share about what your experience this week is with those two gene keys that are the 61 and the 62, that have a lot to do with how we view reality, and how we explain reality, and how we explain ourselves as well. So thank you for today.